The live action One Piece is finally here. After months of speculating, after seeing the trailers and the pictures and seeing the casting rumors, it's finally here. And is it good? Well, the internet says yes. Netflix has tried with their anime adaptations. We've had Cowboy Bebop and Death Note, for example, but both of those weren't able to capture the spirit of those animes. So why is One Piece able to do that? One thing that I think they were able to do correctly is they brought the original storyteller, Oda, into the live action adaptation. Now, he wasn't there the entire time. He more kind of came in to course correct, kind of sent the ship on its way, pun intended. But I think this was important because it still captured the essence of what One Piece has to be. Now, I don't think Cowboy Bebop, Dragon Ball Evolution, or even Death Note were able to do that. All three of those felt drastically different and didn't have the heart of what those animes had. Something that One Piece so far is able to nail. One example for why I think One Piece was able to nail it is the casting. You have no names, people that don't have a lot of recognition and the big buzz, and they're able to capture the essence of that character that Oda was trying to represent. A good example is Luffy. This 20-year-old actor has barely any credits to his name, and I think that's really important because that shows that his character, his acting ability brings out the character of Luffy. It shows that they chose the right person for the job instead of the right actor to bring in more seats. Now, I love John Cho, but I really don't think he was the best casting for the main character of Cowboy Bebop. I don't think that his style really captured the essence of the main character. He wasn't as suave and smooth. He was more just kind of doing his own shtick that he does in most of his movies. Now, I'm not trying to diss him in other movies or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is if you're trying to adopt a very famous anime, you gotta do it correctly, and you gotta pay homage to those fans, while also maybe try to bring in a few new ones. And I think One Piece was able to do that. One thing that I think Netflix didn't do right with one of their adaptations was Death Note. I think the cool thing about Death Note is it's about a psychological killer having the power to kill with no repercussions. And I think that's what the anime was able to bring out into it. And I think that's what the live action wasn't able to do. I think they were trying to go with a more simple concept for a more broad audience. And I don't think One Piece is doing that. One Piece is understanding what it is, and it's gonna do what it does, and anyone that's about it will jump on board. And I think that's really important. One Piece is such a strange show, and the adaptation really leaned into that. But they didn't hold your hand while doing that. They had different things like a snail phone or different colored hair that was very different colored hair, but they didn't hold your hand and say, this is why this is. No, that's just the world you're set in. And I think that's the magic of One Piece. It is weird, it's strange. Your main character can stretch and do pretty much anything that he puts his mind to. And you have to have that essence, that spirit and love in that anime. But with leaning into something like that, you need the budget for it. Something that I think Netflix was able to do. When you see the Going Merry and when you see other pirate ships, those are the ships. They built these things. They really went into it. And I don't think they did that with Cowboy Bebop or Death Note. I think they were trying to have their foot one in and one out, so they didn't lose too much if this wasn't successful. But with One Piece, guys, this is a 1,000 episode anime. You gotta lean into it if you're gonna try to do it. And I think it paid off. Just to put in comparison, Game of Thrones was roughly around $15 million per episode at its peak. Now, One Piece, season 1, fresh out the gate, it's around $18 million per episode, meaning that they had trust or that they were gonna try their absolute best to make the best adaptation possible. One thing that I think the adaptation was able to nail was Oda's writing. Oda has been at One Piece for, 20 to 30 years? So clearly his writing would change between the East Blue and where we're at now. There's gonna be a lot of changes. One thing that we're able to do with the adaptation is we're able to look at that broad stroke and try to, course correct, kind of do some things that he wasn't able to do with his early writing. If we're comparing the East Blue Saga from the anime to the adaptation, Luffy are two pretty different characters. Luffy doesn't grow as much as a character early on. He pretty much stays the same and then affects people around him. And I think that's the beauty of Luffy. And in the adaptation, that's very similar. But if you're gonna condense something, you still have to have an arc for your main character. One great example is in Enies Lobby, Luffy loses to Crocodile. He just straight up loses, isn't able to come back, nothing. And I think that's really important for his character to bounce back and so he can fight him again. Now, the same thing happens in the adaptation for Arlong. In the anime, Luffy never loses to Arlong, but he does in the adaptation. And I think that's really important. The reason why is because we get to see our main character in an 8-episode span go through an arc. Now, it's not a huge arc. He's not, totally different. He still wants to be king of the pirates, but he understands that he can't go in headstrong, something he doesn't learn for years after in the anime. That's really important for the adaptation. This was a great start to a live-action adaptation of an anime. Now, the only thing that we need to do left is continue. Look, Netflix is known for canceling shows that shouldn't have been canceled right away, and I really, really hope One Piece doesn't fall victim to that. One Piece is such a long show, and it has such broad strokes for character arcs, for things that come back, from things that were set up from earlier, that needs to apply into the live-action adaptation. Now, from being a big One Piece fan, I see that there's a lot of small things that they hinted at that can come back later. Now we just need to do that. For me, I think the reason why One Piece means so much is because it's able to rely on its characters. It's able to have those moments, whether you laugh, you cry, you cheer, whatever it is, you're able to get that essence from One Piece. You're able to understand where these characters are coming from, where they're wanting to go, and where they're at right now. It's not just kind of watching a show, it's an experience that you see when you're on this journey with them. You don't know if they're gonna get to where they wanna be, but you love where they're at and you love these characters and what they've had to go through, and you want them to succeed. That's not something I felt with Death Note. That's not something I felt with Cowboy Bebop or Dragon Ball Evolution. And that's something I still feel here. The first season sets up so much potential for Nami, for a character that we really don't know too much about anymore, but we're gonna be able to. I would love to explore all of these in the future, but we just need to get there. And I think that Netflix is doing something great. And I think if they want to continue to span into different animes, they should. They should take the lessons that they learned from this one and apply it to the rest. The live action Cowboy Bebop was all style and no substance. The live action One Piece has a little bit mixture of both. Yes, they have the style and like the colors and the costumes and the craziness of it, but they also remember what One Piece is about. It's about its characters. It's about looking at who they are underneath and bringing that together. It's about a crew and a friendship of each one of them and making that a huge bond. And I don't think Cowboy Bebop or Death Note were able to capture that. Something that One Piece is surprisingly able to do. It's a good story and they leaned into that. The anime is able to capture the heart and essence of these characters and the story it's trying to tell. That's why the live action adaptation didn't have to change too much, because that story and heart is already there. We were able to still experience those triumphs and those low points in the adaptation because it really just wasn't lost in translation.